Hi everyone, welcome to today's video. For today, we are going to be making this super cute welcome home card using the At Home With You stamp set. Such a cute stamp set. It's just absolutely adorable. I love it. It's got a really warm, cheery feel to it. And I've loved this stamp set from the second I put my eyes on it, and I'm now bringing you guys a project using it. So before we get into today's project, this is the card we're going to be making. I wanted to tell you guys, I got the inspiration to make this card from our catalog. So our catalog obviously has all of our amazing products in it, but it's also an idea book. So use the catalog to get ideas of what to do with the supplies that you have. I got this idea from this picture right down here in the catalog. So it's honestly, it's such a great resource to use because you can get so many ideas for cards, projects, anything, and it's right by the supplies that you have. So this is the page that the stamp set and framelits is on, and then it gives you some projects that you can actually do using those supplies. So make sure that, I mean, this book obviously has a ton of different supplies and materials in it, so obviously you can get tons of ideas and see all the different products, but with those products you have tons of different projects you can do. So make sure you look in your catalog, not just when you want to purchase something, but when you're having a creative block. I always grab this, I always look through it. When you really want to use a specific stamp set, but you're not exactly sure what to do, or you kind of have an idea, but you want a little backup to make sure that what you're doing is going to look right, this is the book for you. Grab that. So again, we're going to be making this card today, and we're using quite a few different things, and a lot of this stuff you can switch out for other things. So I'm going to go ahead and just list all of the materials that you're going to need in the description of this video. There will be a blog post. It'll be the first link down there, and I'm going to list all of the materials that you need down in that blog post, just so this video isn't super long, just because I'm going through all of the materials. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is take this piece of our thick Whisper White cardstock. It's cut at 4 inches by 5 1/4, and we're going to use this to create our background. And for our background, we're going to be using our one of our decorative masks, and this is the brick pattern. And then with that mask, we're going to be using our embossing paste, and I'm going to tint it with a little bit of smoky slate. And then I also have my palette knives here as well. So before we start doing this, one thing that I wanted to talk to you guys about. So I've used embossing paste in a few videos now, and I usually use my silicone mat to mix on. Well, I got tired of having to clean it, and I can pretty much clean the masks and my palette knives at my desk. I always keep some baby wipes right next to me, and as soon as I'm done, I'll just plop it down on a baby wipe and clean it up pretty easily. So I wanted something that was super easy for me to clean with, and what I found is I can use my grid paper as my palette to mix on. So you might see here, I don't know if you guys can actually see it, but I'll pull it out. I just have this plastic folder here. And all I do is I lift up one sheet of grid paper and I slide this plastic folder under there, and that protects the surface of all of the grid sheets underneath from not getting warped or anything, because we have our embossing paste on this one. And then once I'm done, I can just rip this off, throw it away, and I'm good to go. So that's what I'm going to be doing today. It just works out really well for me. I found and you don't have to put anything underneath the paper. I just get worried. I don't want to ruin the sheets underneath it. So that's what I've been doing, and it works really well for me. And I happen to just have this plastic folder laying around. You could also just put a piece of cardstock underneath there, and that would work perfectly fine too. So let's set that off to the side. What am I doing? So we're going to start with our embossing paste here. And like I said, we're going to tint it with a little tiny bit of smoky slate. So I'm going to go ahead and get some of my embossing paste out of my little jar here. And on my sample, where did my card go? On this one, I did a very clean, thick brick border or brick background on the back. I think for this one, I want it to be a little bit more textured and not so perfect. So I'm not going to need as much embossing paste. And all I'm going to do is, again, if you've seen my videos before, I like to spread it out a little bit to make it a little thinner when you go to mix. And then all I'm going to do is take my, try not to drop your embossing paste or your re-inker in the embossing paste. All I'm going to do is take my re-inker right here and put a little tiny bit of Smoky Slate. This is the Smoky Slate re-inker on my palette knife. Close that up and move that guy away. And then we're just gonna start kind of mixing it in. Now, it doesn't need to be perfectly mixed in. I'm doing this mainly because I want my brick to stand out on my white background, and I want it to stand out a little bit more than white on white does. So that's essentially why I'm doing this. Just like so. So I'm not mixing it too well. I mean, all of the embossing paste has the color in it, but I'm not being too precise about making sure that it's completely mixed in, because if it's a little bit darker in some areas, if there are little streaks here and there, it'll actually enhance the look of our project. So I like that. So now what I'm going to do is I just have a couple pieces of washi tape. I'm going to set down my, what is this? My piece of cardstock. And then I'm going to put the mask. I can't speak today. I'm going to put the mask on top of it. And then just put the washi tape on both sides of the mask. I don't find that you need to tape down your piece of cardstock. This keeps everything in place from all of the projects I've done. I'm not sure which palette knife. I'm going to try using this thicker one, because this one I get more of a messy kind of feel with it. I don't want it to be perfect for this one. We're going to try and see what happens at least. This card is all about playing and seeing what happens. It's a fun project to do because you can really mix it up and just see what you get. So I think I'm going to try, I'm just very I'm very freely just kind of putting the paste in areas. I'm not really paying attention to make sure that the paste gets in every single hole. I'm just going to leave it at that. And let's peel up our mask. Ooh, I love the way that that turned out. I love it. It's very kind of free and just random. Not all of the bricks are filled in. I really like that one. So what I'm doing off to the side behind me, I have a baby wipe down on my desk, and I just set that mask face first onto the baby wipe so that that can start to kind of clean itself. And then we're going to take this and set this off to the side to start to dry. Just like so. I'm going to take my palette knives, and again with my trusty baby wipes. We're actually going to be using baby wipes quite a bit in this project. I'm just going to get everything off of my palette knives. These are clean enough for me. I don't feel like they need to be super clean. And then here's my other trick. So I'm going to take my plastic sheet out. I'm going to peel up my grid paper, fold this in half. Okay. Stay with me here, guys, I promise. And then I'm going to take my mask, put it face down. I will just pick up my baby wipe, and then I'm just going to use this to clean off my mask. Again, I've mentioned this a couple times. I don't need my masks to be perfectly clean. They work just as well, even if you have a little bit of residue on them. They're fine. That's about all I clean my masks. And now all of this stuff, I can take it and toss it. So then just take this, and this is completely trash, and now I'm done. I think the most daunting thing about using our embossing paste is how do you clean everything? How do you make sure you don't ruin your supplies? That's all I do, and I have had no issues. I love the results that I get with it, and I absolutely love it. Clearly because I use it I've used it a million times now. So next, let's move on to our stamping. Let's do that. So next I have some watercolor paper, and these are just scraps that I grabbed. This is the Canson cold press. I think it's like 140-pound watercolor paper. Super inexpensive. You can get it at Michael's, not Joann's, Hobby Lobby, any of your craft stores. I've even seen it in Target before. So it's super inexpensive. It lasts a long time, and that's what I'm going to be using today. So the only ink pad we're going to be using is basic black, because I'm all about the The simplicity of black ink pad. So I'm gonna take this stamp here from the set, and this is just the door. And I'm gonna grab my mouse pad because it's not a super intricate stamp, but it does have a lot of surface area, so I wanna make sure I stamp it well. And I'm actually gonna take my stamp pad, my ink pad, and stamp it up this way, or ink it up this way. I just find that this works a little bit better sometimes, and then I'll do it the other way too, just like a couple good presses into the ink pad. And then we will just flip this over and stamp it down right onto our watercolor paper. Just like so. Oops, I kind of lift that one up a little bit. Let's make sure. Oh yeah, it still looks good. Okay, so then I'm going to also stamp, whoops, this little guy here. And this is like a little mat, a little welcome mat, and it says welcome on it. So I'm going to ink this up as well. I don't know why I closed my ink pad, because we're gonna be using it a few more times. And I'm gonna actually try and save a little bit of my paper here. So I'm gonna ink that right next to that. I'm not super happy with that, so I'm gonna go ahead and ink it up again. See, when I try to rush things, that's what happens. Perfect, okay, I like that one a lot more. And then what I'm going to do, I have a couple other scraps here that I just wanted to use. So there is this wreath here that has flowers on it. There are two wreaths. One is more of like holly leaves. This one has flowers on it. So make sure you use the one that has flowers. My ink pad was a little crooked. I was wondering what was going on. And one thing that you want to do for this one, before I forget. So you see that this one has like a little arrow right there. You want to put that arrow pointing straight up at the top of your paper. So straight up at the top of the paper, and this will come in handy in a little bit. I'm also going to just take one of the markers that I'm going to use later. It doesn't matter which one, and I'm just going to put a little mark on the side that is the top. So we pointed the arrow towards that little mark. You'll understand why this matters in a minute. And then we're going to take my other scrap that I have, and we're going to use this little flower pot here. And we're going to stamp this one twice because I want two flower pots, one on each side of the door. There's one. And there's two. Okay, so that's all the stamping we're doing for right now. Almost all of this stamping for the entire card. But we will do a little bit more in a sec. Actually, you know what? Let's just get all of the stamping out of the way. Okay, so next we're gonna grab our card base, which this is a piece of Flirty Flamingo, and it is 11 inches by 4 1/4. And then I've scored it at 5 1/2. I've mentioned this a couple times before, but if you're using a long piece of cardstock for your card base, I highly recommend scoring it in the middle, because when you go to fold it, you're more likely to get those kind of bumpy edges if you don't score it. So I find that when I use this size of a card base, when I do a long card base, it really, really helps to score it. So I get a really nice look in the end. So all I'm gonna do is pay attention to where the front of my card is going to be. So I think this right here is going to be the front of my card. So this is the front, this is the top of the inside, and this is the part where you would write a message to someone. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp our greeting in there right now. And I'm going to use, there are two different stamps here. One says congrats and the other says on your new home. So let's go ahead and ink this one up. And we'll stamp congrats right there in the middle. And then on your new home right underneath it. Ta-da! Super cute. It just adds a little bit of something, because this one you don't really have a sentiment on the front of the card. We have that welcome mat that we did, but other than that, you don't really have a sentiment, because it's the star of this one is really the door and the stuff around it. So I think that just adds a nice little touch, and it makes it meaningful as to what you're doing the card for. So now we're going to be doing a ton of coloring. And I'm probably going to speed a lot of this up, I'll show you guys or talk to you guys about what I'm going to do, but a lot of it I'm probably going to speed up and then I'll stop and explain some more. So we have our 3 pieces here, the 2 flower pots and the wreath. I'm going to set those off to the side for a little bit, and we're going to focus on the door. So for the door, I'm going to be using my re-inkers. Now here's where it comes into, you can use whatever method you want to color these images. I'm going to be using a combination of my re-inkers and my markers for today. But you could use your stamp pads, you could use our markers specifically, you could use only re-inkers, you could use Copic markers if you had those, you can use colored pencils, whatever you have, whatever supplies you have at home, go ahead and use those, as well as whatever colors you have, go ahead and use those. I really liked this pink and blue combination, so that's what I went with, but you can totally use whatever you think looks the best. It's, again, completely up to you. This is your project. So I'm going to be using Night of Navy, and I'm going to color the entire door in Night of Navy. And then the outside frame of the door, I'm going to use Smoky Slate, and I'm going to do the outside frame of the door. I'm also going to do the handle in Smoky Slate, and then I'm going to be using the Daffodil Delight Stampin' Right marker to color in the windows to make it look like there's a light on inside. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. I'm going to speed it up, and I will be back as soon as I'm done. Oh, one other thing I wanted to say before I started. I'm going to be using just one of our acrylic blocks here, and I'm gonna put, here, I'll show you exactly what I'm going to do. I'm gonna take my re-inker and I'm gonna put 1 dot. You don't even need a full dot of the color of the re-inker. I'm gonna put it in the corner of my block, and then I'm gonna use that in combination with my aqua painters to do all of the coloring that I'm going to do right now. One tip or trick, whatever you want to call it, that you can do is if you're having a hard time figuring out what the color is going to look like when you cut it or when you go to color, you can take either a piece of white cardstock and put it underneath just like that, and then that'll give you a really good indication of what the color is going to be. Most of the time I use some of the blank space that I have on whatever I'm working on to just do a little test swatch, so that's probably what I'll end up doing. But if you're having issues, this trick of putting a piece of white cardstock underneath your block really, really does work. I used it a little bit earlier when I was doing my first card, and it really did help me get a really good idea of what the color was going to be when I went to go and watercolor. So anyways, that's what I'm going to do, and I will be back as soon as it's done. I'm going to stop for just a second. So I told you guys earlier that I was going to be using quite a few baby wipes in this video. So I'm done coloring my door, and I used my Night of Navy ink over here. So a couple of things. This is actually probably a good chance for me to stop and talk to you guys. So a couple of things. You'll notice that I did 1 drop of ink, and it looks like I did not touch that ink at all. So if you're curious about how economical it is to use a re-inker to watercolor versus buying something else, it's actually really, really, really amazing. It goes such a long way. I love using these. So I highly, highly, highly recommend, if you want to get into watercoloring, pick up some of our re-inkers and use them to watercolor. They're really inexpensive, and it gives you a good taste at using liquid ink to watercolor. So that's number 1. You can see that I hardly used anything. Number 2, when I'm ready to clean up my block and use another color, all I do is take a baby wipe, I fold it up, and I just do a couple swipes on the baby wipe, and my block is completely clean, and now I'm ready to go on to my next color. I do the same thing with my aqua pen. I just take it, scribble it off onto a clean piece of my baby wipe, and now I'm good to move on to the next color. So I'm going to do the exact same thing, not with Night of Navy. I just used that one. With Smoky Slate, I'm going to do the smallest drop possible that I can. And then I'm gonna go in and start coloring. One thing that I forgot to mention earlier is when I go to do this outside trim here, I'm gonna be very, very messy with it, and I'm actually going to take it outside the lines. And the reason I'm doing that is because with our framelits, it's a very, very, very minor detail. But with our framelits, you actually get a little bit of border around your image. So to kind of get that to go away, I like to watercolor outside of the lines so that you don't really see that you have that extra space on the outside. So if you make this project, you'll see what I'm talking about. And once we cut everything, I'll show you guys again and mention it just so you can understand what I'm talking about. But I'm not this messy of a color. You can see I did go outside the lines down here, but I'm intentionally going outside the lines right now. So anyways, I'm going to continue coloring and then I will be right back. To be using my Stampin' Right marker in conjunction with my aqua pen. I keep calling that my aqua painter. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to color a little bit and then I'm going to go over and blend it out with the aqua painter. So I'm just going to do a couple streaks in a couple of the windows and then I'm going to take my aqua painter and just blend it in. Just like that. And it gives a nice kind of organic real life feel to it. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the rest of the windows. Okay, so our door is done now, and I'm gonna take this and set this off to the side. You may end up wanting, as it starts to dry, you may end up wanting to go in and add a little bit more color. Like I think I might wanna add some more blue to this. I let it dry completely first so I can see what the true color is, and then I'll go and add where I wanna add. So, but for right now, I'm gonna take this and set this off to the side. Next, we're gonna bring in our little flower pots and our wreath here. And I'm going to use my chocolate chip re-inker and I'm going to color in the pots of the flowers just like we did with our door. So same technique for that. And then I'm going to take my Stampin' Right markers here and I'm going to color in the flowers using my markers just because it's a little bit easier and it's a little cleaner of a look. Oh, sorry, I think I just bumped my camera. So I'm going to use my markers. The colors I'm using are Flirty Flamingo, Melon Mambo, Wild Wasabi, and Pool Party. And I'm using these three colors for the flowers, and then I'm obviously using the Wild Wasabi for the leaves. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that now. have all of my pieces colored now, and you can do this however you want. When I did the wreath on this one, I mixed it up a little bit. I didn't put any blue in the wreath. I just left the blue in those flowers down there. So mix it up, do whatever you want. It's totally up to you. So now that we've done that, it's really time to put the card together. And this is the easy part. So we are going to start off by grabbing the at-home framelits. And we are going to cut out all of our images. So you're going to use one for the little welcome mat. You have one here for our door. You have one for the wreath, and then you have one for the flower pot. So that one we'll have to cut out twice since we have 2 flower pots. So I'm just going to start, and as usual, take my little washi tape here and just line this up. Whoops. Only get a piece that's actually big enough. What is happening right now? There we go. Okay, so there's one down there. There's one down there. And then I'm going to take the little welcome mat and put this right here. Concentrating, making sure I line it up as best as I can. Okay, so there's that. Then when you do the wreath, remember how earlier when we stamped it, the stamp had like a little arrow pointing up, and we made sure it was pointing up and pointing to this little mark here? Well, your framelit actually has the same arrow on it, and that makes it really, really easy to line up your framelit. So as long as you had the arrow pointed up, you should be able to take the arrow of the framelit and point it up as well. And you should be able to line up the wreath, the framelit, absolutely perfectly. You might, I mean, it's not gonna, you're gonna have to wiggle it around a little bit, but it's way easier than trying to figure out exactly where it is, turning it over and over and over again. I know you guys have seen me do that multiple times, and this makes it super easy. I wish they would do this with every framelit and stamp. Honestly, it's so stinking easy. And then I'm gonna put another little piece here on my flowers. Dun, 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 dun. Just like that. Now let's bring over our big shot. Scooch those out of the way for 2 seconds. Bring over the big shot. Pull out this plate here. Okay. And then I'm gonna put this in like that. Try and get all of these on here to cut at once. Just like that. Okay, and then set our top cutting plate down, crank it through, hopefully. Oh, my big shot's moving all around today. Okay, so then I'm gonna take out these 2 pieces here, and very quickly I'm going to reposition the flower pot since we need this framelit again. This washi tape, I love it because it's really thick, but it rips so easily. So I should probably stop using it for dies because it just doesn't work out very well. Oh, well. Let me see, I should have this little piece here. Line these as best as I can. And then we'll crank this one through one more time, and then it's going to be super easy to put the rest of our card together. Okay, so let's move this guy out of the way, and we'll pop out all of our die cut pieces. So you should have 2 flower pots, a wreath, and with the wreath, there's another piece in the middle. You just pop that out. Then we'll have our welcome mat. Oh, I totally did not cut that out very well. Shoot, I'm gonna have to do that one again, but I'll do that in 1 second. And then we have our door here. I'm thinking it may have shifted a little bit one after I put it in the big shot, because it did not cut out well at all. So then we have our door. Let me go ahead and I'm gonna re-stamp the welcome mat and then cut it out again. So I'll be right back. Okay, now that I have that, so let's go ahead and put our card together. So we're gonna bring over our brick piece that we did earlier. I want to just make sure I trim any of the embossing paste that's kind of peeking off the sides. Sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't, but I think you get a cleaner look if you just take a little blade and trim it down. It's not hard at all. It takes just a couple seconds. See, perfect. And then I have a piece here, and this is from our Wood Textures Designer Series paper. And all I'm going to do is take this little strip here, and we're going to put some adhesive on the back, and we're going to put it at the bottom of our piece. And it just gives kind of a like a floor look, so maybe there's like a little deck before you get up to the door. It just grounds the door a little bit, so it's not just a door floating in space. Then I'm gonna take my door here and put adhesive. I'm gonna do adhesive on all 4 sides because we did put quite a bit of water on this piece. And what you're gonna do, I don't know how well you can see this, but the edges of the door go slightly further than this edge right here. So you have like your frame goes a little bit further, and I just like to kind of push it right up against to where the bottom of the door is. So the little tiny bits of the frame actually hang over this wood piece that we put on there, but it makes it look very, very, very realistic. Then I'm gonna take my little welcome mat and just do some adhesive on the back of that one. Okay, just like that. And this is gonna slide right into that little slot right under the door. It fits perfectly right there. Okay, my camera died, of course. So, the last thing, I'm gonna use our new little mini dimensionals, and I'm gonna use those for the wreath and our 2 flower pots. So, we'll go ahead and stick them down. They are just, honestly, I don't know how we lived without these because they're so convenient for these tiny little pieces that you make for a project. They're just absolutely perfect, and I don't know how we lived without them before. I seriously don't. And now I have crazy dogs. Hang on. Okay, there's a dog barking outside, so they're going a little crazy, but hopefully they'll be okay now. Okay, so I think 3 is probably good. And then we'll just take the backing off of all of them. Pretending like the dog's not barking still. Whoops. Okay. Toss these to the side. And then I'm going to just put I'm going to put 1 flower pot on each side of the door. So there's 1, and I'm putting it like it's sitting on this wood here. So again, this is all giving it context, so it's not just kind of floating in mid-air. Okay, just like that. And then I'm gonna take my little wreath and stick it right on the top of the window area of the door. Then we're gonna flip this whole thing over, and I'm gonna use fast fuse again. 1, because it's just kind of what I had sitting out, and 2, because this piece has a lot on it. It's got the texture and it's got watercolor stuff on it. It'll hold up a lot better using fast fuse. I'm actually gonna put a couple swipes in the middle just to make sure that that all stays really nicely as well. And okay, so now going back to our card base, we had our little greeting on here before, so I'm gonna go ahead and fold the card base in half and use my bone folder, just like so, to get it nice and folded. And then all I'm gonna do is take my front of my card and stick it down onto my card base. And that's the card for today, guys. I really, really, really hope you enjoyed this one. It's so much fun to do. This was a little bit of a longer project, but it's one of those projects where you can just kind of sit and zone out and color and play and use our new embossing paste, and it's just really, really fun, I think. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one. And again, for all of the specific products, make sure you check out the first link in the description box below. And other than that, I will see you guys in the next video. Have a great day. Bye.